In the previous video, we discussed some information about fasting, and I briefly mentioned that we'll be discussing diet. So that's what we're going to do today. There is a lot of confusion around the diets. Do you need to be vegetarian? Do you need to be carnivore? Do you need to be fasting all the time? Do you need to be pescatarian? You name it. Do you need to be ketogenic diet? Well, the ketogenic diet is all hot, but at the same time, about 30% of the patients on ketogenic diet will dramatically increase their cholesterol levels to the very dangerous levels. So you have to be really thinking, is this particular diet is right for you or not? It is nearly impossible to predict which diet will work for one person versus another. But I usually start with a very simple elimination diet for vast majority of my patients. And what I explain to them that this diet is not forever. This diet is only for 3 months, maybe 2-3 months, to just remove all the foods that are typically irritating to our gut, typically causing some inflammation. So I call it a stroke diet just because I started using that for my stroke patients. But in reality, this diet is based on two types of diet. One is elimination diet, one is the autoimmune diet. So I combine them in a sensical way and put it in a way that it would be easier to follow, and I will explain that in a second. But pretty much anybody can follow this diet. What I found in the last 5 years that I've been using this diet in my patients is that vast majority of the patients will lose weight, which is great, just because they will be eating healthier foods. They will have much more energy, but also they also will have a considerable improvement in their sugars. A lot of patients with the strokes have diabetes or pre-diabetes, so we always measure A1C, which is a cumulative number for sugar for last 3 months. And in those patients, 100% of the patients who follow this diet, I will see a considerable drop in this number A1C to normal levels or near normal levels. This diet is restrictive, like every elimination diet. So it's certainly not the easiest diet necessarily, but at the same time, if you understand why you're doing this diet, then it is relatively easy. And the basis of the diet is very simple. If you look at your plate, half of your plate would be vegetables. Okay? Any vegetables. Go to the store and go around the store and find any vegetables that you like. It does not make any difference which ones. I would prefer them to be organic, just because it is much healthier. We don't want to introduce a lot of toxins in our body. At the same time, they don't necessarily have to be organic. For example, some of the vegetables that have a skin on it that you do not consume, like avocados or bananas, they potentially do not have to be necessarily organic, just because you'll be removing the skin and you're not going to be eating that. On the other hand, apples or berries, you consume them with skin, so you really want them to be as organic as possible. Okay, so half of the plate are vegetables. Quarter of the plate would be some kind of protein source. Again, it may be I would prefer that to be combination throughout the week of animal proteins and plant proteins. So you can combine lentils and beans, or you can combine with meats. You don't have to necessarily combine it in one meal. You can eat one day more lentils, another day you'll have fish or some kind of other animal protein. Fish is very, very important in our meals because it delivers a lot of omega-3s. Vast majority of the patients that I have tested are very deficient in omega-3s, which are anti-inflammatory oils. They also help our brain to develop. It is certainly much better to get omega-3s from the food rather than the pills, because there is a lot more issues with the pills that contain omega-3s, and there are storage issues, there are quality issues. So I can certainly answer those questions if you have any questions about that. And then a quarter of the plate, the rest of the last quarter of the plate, would be some kind of fat. Again, we're not talking about bad fats. We're talking about healthier fats that you use in your vegetables or actually comes in your meats. So typically it would be monosaturated fats like avocado oil, or polyunsaturated fats like olive oil, for example. But at the same time, if you want to use a little bit of ghee, which is clarified butter, or a very small amount of coconut oil, it's also perfectly fine. I certainly don't want to advise like other health blogs to use only coconut oil or only ghee or only saturated fats, because again, based on the biochemical studies that I've done on my patients, I see the patterns that are not beneficial for them. As people progress through this diet, they will realize that they certainly want to have more. And then the next step would be to really look at the biochemistry of the body and see what is the perfect diet for them. I have posted previous video about NutriVal. That is the test that I use to figure out the current requirements for fats, carbohydrates, proteins that body requires to function optimally. So that will be the next step to kind of move forward. But if you do not want to do that test, after 3 months of very clean eating, you can start adding some of the foods back and seeing how your body will respond to it. What typically happens if, for example, you have not been drinking milk or have not been consuming any dairy products for 3 months and you start consuming them again, your body will develop bloating, will develop gas, will develop just a lot of fatigue. And then this is basically a signal from your body that it may not be necessarily enjoying or benefiting from that particular food. Same thing may happen with the eggs sometimes, even though they're really good for us. Sometimes it may happen with the grains. So really you need to start listening to your body, and after 3 months of this initial diet, your body will be much more in tune and will be letting you know that it does not like this particular food. I will provide more information in a link below to my website. I have created a big page about this diet, so you can kind of look at what are the beneficial foods for you, what are the not so beneficial foods for you, and then you can decide whether you'll be interested in pursuing that diet. So if you like this video, please follow me for more information. I am going to be providing more information about dietary information, about environment, about lifestyles, about mindsets. This is a big series. It will take me a very long time to cover all of this, and I hope you will join me on this journey.